everyone. My name is Glenn Gray. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with AppViewX. We also have on with us as a presenter, Puneet Singh with Encryption Consulting. We're just going to hold for another 2 minutes so that we can allow the other attendees to join. I still see some coming in. So if you wouldn't mind just bearing with us for, like I said, just 2 more moments, and then we'll go ahead and kick off. Okay, we were at 3 minutes after the start, so I'm going to go ahead and open up with introductions. First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining. Hopefully you're all safe and doing well. And again, my name is Glenn Gray. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with AppViewX. We have Puneet Singh with Encryption Consulting. And we're here to discuss with you why choose data encryption. If we could go to the next slide, please. I just want to introduce AppViewX, give you a brief overview, and then I'm going to hand it over to Puneet so that he can describe what benefits encryption consulting can offer. So AppViewX is a automation and certificate lifecycle management platform. We're located throughout the world in 7 different locations. We have over 300 employees. We've been around since 2010. We were an offshoot from another company. We have over 100 customers currently at this point, and we basically focus on solutions related to certificate lifecycle management. That would be discovery and visibility, certificate and key compliance, certificate lifecycle automation, management of IoT, mobile endpoints, cloud services, and secure key management. With that, I'd like to go to the next slide and hand it over to Puneet.
Thank you, Glenn. So I want to give you guys a little bit background about the encryption consulting. We are a startup and we have been in our business for almost 2 years, and we focus in the areas of PKI, HSMs, encryption, tokenization, and data masking. That being said, I'll go ahead and start with the webinar. And in this particular webinar, we are going to discuss in more detail about the data security. I'll start the discussion with what are the drivers which are present out there with respect to the data security. Then we'll also be talking about the basics about difference between encryption, tokenization, and data masking. After that, I'll be talking about how normally most of the organizations are rolling out the enterprise at the enterprise level, the data security. We'll also look at the inside out approach of protecting the data at the data layer, and then we will talk about what are the top 5 challenges what organizations are facing in their journey with respect to the data security. And I will wrap up the session by talking about when we talk about encryption or crypto as a service, how the organization look at that. That being said, if we talk about the data security, there are 2 major drivers for the data security. One is the compliance-based approach. In the compliance-based approach, normally people buy the data security solution just to meet the compliances such as PCI compliance, GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, HITECH, and etc. And the another approach which is out there is a risk-based approach, where they want to reduce the overall risk portfolio of their organization. And as a security consultant for 16+ years, I normally recommend my customers to go with the risk-based approach, as that's the best way to apply the data security at the organization level. And if you go with the risk-based approach, you by default meets the regulations which are out there. Now, when we talk about data security, there are 3 different options what people have in hand. The first option is encryption, second option is tokenization, and the third option is masking. Now, before we go more deep into this discussion, I want to set up the basics of what is encryption, what is tokenization, and what is masking. Now, if you see that the encryption is a science of making the things hidden, and if you see the record of James Smith, who is boarding a Delta Airlines flight from the gate E7. If we encrypt that data, we get a jailbreak data which a normal person cannot read it. And one more thing which I want to focus on this particular slide is that that arrow is bidirectional, that the encryption is reversible. The second method which is out there is the tokenization. In the tokenization, we normally separate out the data from the direct identifiers. And if you see here again, I'm using the same record and I'm doing the tokenization. And here I have tokenized the passenger named James Smith, and we are getting a token which is a 5 characters and it's alphabetic, and we are still kind of maintaining all the characteristics of the data. The last method which is out there is the data masking. In this particular method, we normally try to remove the identifiable data in a non-reversible manner. And if you see, the same record has been masked and it cannot be reversed. So all these three options which are out there have a different use cases in the real world, and organizations use them as per their need, of the environment. Now, normally whenever the organizations which start the journey of the data security, what I have seen is that they start with a data flow mapping exercise. By that data flow mapping exercise, I mean to say that they need to decide that what are going to be the ingress point and what are going to be the egress point, where the sensitive data is entering and how it's leaving the organization, and what are the different integration points where they can apply the data security within their organization. Now, after they have done the data flow mapping exercise, they need to do a decision. They need to build a decision tree. And this particular matrix which I have laid here kind of helps them build that decision tree, that at what point they should apply encryption and at one point they should apply tokenization or masking. For example, if it's a financial institution and they want to meet the PCI compliance, they have to tokenize the data, because PCI compliance is the only regulation which kind of forces for the tokenization. And if you encrypt the data there or mask the data there, you will have a tough time basically convincing the PCI QSAs that you are using that mechanism. Whereas if there are any other standards, such as if you want to meet the FIPS or the NIST standards, then encryption is your best option. Then there is other parameters which also come into picture, that you have to look if you want to run the analytics on your data, then what is the best option. So with the encryption, running the analytics is a little bit tougher, whereas the tokenization, running the analytics, is much more easier. People can argue on this because there are new ways of encryption which are coming out nowadays, such as the format preserving encryption which is out there, as well as the homomorphic encryption, where you can run the analytics on the encrypted data. But still, tokenization is a much more better choice. That being said, when the people apply the data security on their whole stack of technology which is out there, they have to think that how should they roll it out. So in this particular scenario, what I'm trying to showcase is that if you apply the data security, whether it's encryption, tokenization, or masking at the disk level, the complexity of the deployment is very less. But if you see that the security what you are going to achieve overall is also going to be very less. So the more higher on the stack you apply the data security, the more risk you will be reducing. So if you see that if you do the encryption or tokenization at the application layer of the stack, it might take you more time to do the deployment, but the overall security of the organization is also going to increase. Now, taking this stack, what I described in the last slide, what I have done is that I have built a threat model. So if you look at this threat model, there are different technology stacks which I talked about in the last slide, and I took them and applied the different threat scenarios which is on the left-hand side of the slides. If you see that, if you apply the encryption just at the disk level, what the threat you are just addressing is that if somebody steals that disk from the data center or from your organization. But nowadays, the hackers are more sophisticated. Nobody is going to go to the data center to steal the hard disk to get the data. That's the reason if you're applying the encryption, tokenization, or masking at the application layer, it's going to address most of the threats. It might take you maybe longer time, maybe 6 months or 7 months to onboard one application, but that's the way to go forward. Now, another thing which I want to bring to your notice is that if you look at the breaches, what has happened in the last 10 years, the people have invested a lot of money at the perimeter security, network security, and the application security. But they have not invested much of money at the data security layer or the data layer. And if you think it logically, if you're encrypting the data at the data layer, then even if all the controls fail, such as the perimeter security, network security, firewalls, blah, 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 and hackers, even if they get the hold of the data, that data is not going to be of any use to them. So it's kind of a learning experience, and people have to know about it and then have to roll out a program for the encryption within their organization. But protecting the data at the data layer is the best way to go forward. Now, data security nowadays is not just a technology issue. There's not a single silver bullet that if you apply this is going to solve all the problems. But if you have done the proper data flow mapping exercise and you know all your integration points properly, ingress point and egress points, then it's going to help you. Second thing is that when you're doing the solution design, do the solution design keeping the business requirements in mind. And whenever it comes to the decision making, go with the facts, then basically going on the regulation-based approach, as that will help you reduce the risk, 99% of the risk within your organization. Now, in spite of doing a big bang theory for the data security within an organization, this is the model which I have seen has worked for most of the organizations. Now, in this particular model, the first thing is that you need to identify where exactly your sensitive information is there, because 60 to 75% of the organization doesn't know where exactly their sensitive information resides. Once they have identified where exactly their sensitive information resides, they need to classify it. And after they have done the classification, they need to kind of build an inventory of the existing controls with respect to the threats which they have right now present. After they have done all that, they need to do a proper analysis of it. And while doing the analysis, they need to conduct a threat analysis to confirm the residual risk which is present out there, and kind of evaluate that after applying the encryption or non-encryption methods such as tokenization or masking, is there any residual risk remaining within their organization? Once the analysis has been done, then they should implement the technology. And when they are thinking of implementing the technology, they should do the proof of concept of different vendors. And after doing proof of concept of different vendors, they should develop a detailed requirement designs, and then kind of develop the operation procedures and roll out the technology within their organization. Once the technology has been rolled out, they need to also have a sustenance model. And for building the sustenance model, they need to have a proper operating model within the organization. They need to publish all the policies and the standards within the organization. They should also roll out the SLAs and the key performance indicator, that if there was 100% risk before we rolled out the encryption in the organization, that how much risk is remaining after we have rolled out the encryption or the data security in the organization. Let's talk about the challenges, that what are the challenges most of the organization face while going on the data security journey. The first biggest challenge what I have seen is that people buy multiple security products, multiple, I would say, data security products. They will have at least 3 or 4 encryption products, 2 or 3 data masking products. What happens is that they go with a point-in solution approach, where they just want to solve one problem in spite of having a holistic strategy in place to address all the threats. So don't go with a kind of don't go with a point-in solution approach. Think for a proper strategy. Take a step back, think of a strategy, and then roll out a solution or select a solution. Then, instead of going with a compliance-based approach, go with the business requirements and everything. And third thing, what I have seen in most of the organization, having a poor key management. Encryption is the easy part. It's the key management which is the toughest part. So build a strategy which helps you map to the NIST 800/57, NIST 800/53, and kind of have a best key management practices within your organization. The other point which I have seen the organization struggling with is the discovery of the sensitive information. So do a proper a due diligence and discover all the sources where your sensitive information within your organization resides. And once you have done the discovery portion, then it would be much more easy to apply the data security controls. Now, this is the approach what I have seen has worked for most of the organizations with whom I have worked in the last 16 years. In spite of having a silo ownership, have a central oversight. What I mean by that is that build a center of excellence within your organization. What I have noticed is that people who have to onboard the application within the data security platform or the encryption platform, they get frustrated if they don't get a proper help, and they just said, oh, just leave it. I don't want to onboard my application on this encryption platform or tokenization or masking platform. So if you have a center of excellence within your organization, those 3 or 4 people would be kind of helping different application owners throughout this journey, and slowly your bubble of the data security is going to increase within your organization. Second thing, I am reiterating that instead of going with a compliance-driven approach, go with a threat-driven approach. See that how much threat you are addressing. Fourth thing is that instead of going with a container-centric security, go with a data-centric security. By that, I mean to say that if you're using a transparent encryption, which does the encryption at the file or folder level kind of, go with the element level kind of encryption, so that even if the data is up and running, it would be still in a secure manner, so that even if the hackers get the data, it wouldn't be of any use. Because in the transparent encryption, as soon as the file or the system is up and running, everything is in the clear. Then last, I would say that instead of going with the IT focus, go with the business focus based approach. That being said, I would like to wrap this session by talking about crypto as a service at the organization level. If you look at this particular slide, this is kind of a high level conceptual architecture that when you think of crypto as a service, how it works. On the right hand side, if you will see that we have a certificate authority, which is an asymmetric encryption that ties back to the HSMs, which are storing this key, and then they are providing the keys at the crypto service layer. And on the left hand side, we have got the software based key management solution, which would be exposing the APIs such as the CAPI, CNG, JCE, or the simple APIs like Java, C++, and then basically applications can consume that. So overall, it's kind of a 3-layered architecture. The base layer is the HSM, which will help organization achieve FIPS 140/level 3 kind of a key management. And at the layer 2, we would have a software-based key management solution as well as the certificate authority And the third layer is going to be a crypto service or the APIs which will be exposed to the users, where they can get the certificates, they can integrate their applications and everything. And that's all I have got. That being said, we'll be looking at the question and answer, and we'll try to answer the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Puneet. I think that was a great presentation. We would like to open it up for questions and answers. Feel free to use the Q&A panel or the chat. And just one final comment to add on this. The topic was why encryption, but some may be wondering why the partnership of Encryption Consulting and AppViewX. And to that point, I would like to offer up the fact that the encryption consulting firm is one of the leading authorities in consulting, assessment, planning, advising of product selection, consulting on best practice. So as you evaluate the scenarios and the concerns that you need to address within your particular enterprise, encryption consulting can come in, provide you that high level of expertise, and AppViewX can provide the solution for integrating with your infrastructure and controlling and providing that software management of encryption services. So with that, would love to have some interaction. Any thoughts, questions, observations? Please do open up. There was a question previously wondering if we were going to be sharing the presentation slide deck, and yes, that will be shared with all participants, attendees. We can attach that via email. That's correct, Puneet?
Yep, and the team would be following up on that after this call with everyone who attended the session.
Okay. If anyone would care to share a thought on, has this information been helpful or interesting, would certainly like to hear back on that as well. I do have one question in chat, if you'll allow me to read that out and share it with the organization. Do we have any enterprise encryption strategy template, something that lays out the elements that should be included in a strategy document? Puneet, let me defer that to you because you've already touched a bit on that as far as data security methodology and challenges that data security deployment might want to take into consideration.
Yep, thank you, Glenn. So there's not a template, I would say. Normally the way we build a strategy for the organization is that we normally conduct different interviews with different teams within the organization. And after conducting the workshops, interviews, then we build a kind of a custom strategy. There's not like one shirt doesn't fit everyone. So it's kind of a custom strategy, what we normally build for our customers.
And I'll add on to that as well, the same approach from an AppViewX CLM perspective. It definitely depends on what type of solutions need to be addressed, whether discovery and visibility is a primary concern, whether or not standards compliance is a major concern, whether there's IoT, cloud-based, containerized-based services, what types of infrastructure is being managed. Is it primarily application domain controller, load balance, firewall, server platform? What types of secure key management need to be invoked? So all of these things need to be taken into consideration. So when it comes to templates, there's some basic methodologies and approaches that you can adapt, but really it's highly dependent upon what the business needs are for each enterprise. Hopefully that answers the question.
So Laura, does that answer your question? Is everybody on mute or?
They're going to be appearing in the chat window, I think, and then there's a Q&A panel as well, but I'm seeing folks are entering some comments into the chat window itself, Puneet.
Yep. So Laura, I can reach out to you separately as well, and if there's anything you need in particular, I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay.
Any other
Yeah.
any other
That answers
thoughts?
the question.
Any other thoughts from the other attendees okay. Well, it looks like we're not getting any other questions coming in. You can see here we have contact points, so feel free to take these down. You can reach out to me individually, Puneet individually. We also have generic email response points at info@encryptionconsulting.com and info@appviewx. Don't hesitate if you do have questions or would like to engage in a one-on-one discussion with either Encryption Consulting or AppViewX or the two of us. We've enjoyed a partnership for the better part of the year at this point, I believe, and we would definitely look forward to engaging and answering, addressing any further questions or points to explore, moving forward. So if there are no other questions, thoughts, items to share, I want to say thank you. And Puneet, if you would like to close us out.
Yep. Thank you everyone for joining the session, and we look forward to working with you guys.
All right, take care everyone, and stay safe and healthy.
Bye for now.